Welcome to Mail Time, Suresh Venkat. Today we're turning the spotlight on the public relations business in India. And to make sense of it all, we are in conversation with Amith Prabhu, the mentor of the Promise Foundation and co-founder of platforms such as PRAXIS, Score and Reputation Today, and Sujit Patil, who currently heads corporate brand and communications at Godrej Industries and its associated companies. Together, the duo turned authors last year with their book, The Pursuit of Reputation. The book seeks to be an essential read for anyone who wants to explore and understand the art of crafting reputation. So let's dive straight in and get ready to melt with Amith and Sujit. Hello, Sujit and Amith. Congrats on the book. So the first question is going to be a tough question. You clearly state that PR is not the stepchild of marketing. Why does this perception still exist in corporates?
It's a perception that lies in pockets, not uniformly administered, and everybody thinks that it's a stepchild. But it's also important to understand that reputation is a larger name of the game rather than just marketing a product. I think reputation gives you the why me part of it rather than buy me part of it. And I think that's where we feel that building a reputation of a brand through public relations, through reputation management, through online reputation management, all the nuances of public relation is absolutely very important. And if that function rests under marketing, then the focus becomes more on product selling and advertising, and it diminishes the value of what PR can actually offer. And hence we said in a very cheeky way that it's not a stepchild, but is an equal brother or maybe a larger thing for a corporate brand, because the why me is absolutely important in today's time. There's so much of clutter which is happening in the industry.
Marketing is all about buy me by that extension.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Amith, you've been in the PR business a long time. Give us a rough overview of where the PR industry stands today.
Great question. I think the Indian PR business, I don't call it industry because I think we loosely use the word industry and give it a larger than life perception which it doesn't need to have. Today, India is about close to 2,000 crore worth of revenue that the PR firms make. That could be roughly $250 million US dollars. So that's happened rapidly in the last 5-6 years more than it was earlier. I think the growth has been almost 20-25%. And thanks a lot to COVID. I think COVID helped a lot of brands embrace PR more than ever before. So we're about 2,000 crore as a market in India right now, and that's going to only grow from here in the years to come.
Do you see any major specializations in the next couple of years, specializations that don't exist today but that are going to be critical for the business?
Yes, to some extent, those have all come into India over the years, but I think the pharma, the banking and financial services industry and technology are really growing rapidly, and there will be a lot of specialized firms offering services in these three industries that otherwise were more general in nature. So I think these three are going to grow rapidly, and there will be a lot of specialization and firms focused on tech, BFSI and pharma in the years to come.
So if I were a young PR grad today, I should focus on one of these three to build a glorious career in PR?
Yeah, I mean, see, reputation building, I don't call it PR, I call it reputation management. Reputation management is required for each and every aspect. These are the three industries which Amith alluded to, which are on a rise kind of a thing where a lot of action is happening. But to answer your question, trying to add to what Amith had said, few things which are going to be necessary for PR agencies is about number one is about data analysis and data analytics. I think today reputation management is getting more and more based on data, the authenticity part of it and stuff. So PR agencies need to build that competency internally. The second is about digital. Not many PR consultancy firms are known to be experts in digital and social media. There's a different set of industry which is sprung up, even though a kind of a reputation management consultancies used to exist at that time. So they've snatched away that business from them. I think the time is not lost as yet. Developing their skills on technology, working around application of AI in PR and reputation management. These are skills which are going to take people a long way, and agencies have the wherewithal to actually learn them.
It's interesting you say that, Sujit, because in your book, you've said one of the cliched views of PR is play down the bad and hype up the good. It's a standard PR tactic.
Yeah.
Right? But you use the word reputation management. Should the PR industry or PR business rebrand itself as reputation management and not PR?
I would love to do that. I mean, I would love to see that day when we are, see, look at the genesis of this. I mean, as we grew in our careers, as we grew, generally, We've heard about PR most of the times in the negative sense. You know, it's been doctored.
This is a product of good PR. It's actually no substance to this guy. That kind
Absolutely. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, covering up something which has happened. So I think that's not the reality of what we've experienced. We have together probably 40 plus years of experience working in this profession. I don't think working with corporates, we've ever tried to cover up negatives. It happens. It's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, reputation is important. You try to give the right answers. You try to put up a right narrative. But more or less, it's not the case, you know, in terms of covering up some bad things. And so it needs to be seen from a really different angle, from a positive angle, that this is a profession which is adding to the sheen of an organization. I'll give you some data. Your market capitalization, there have been studies and research which show that 30% of the market cap is directly relational to the reputation you carry. The better the reputation, more people invest in you. If a reputation is good, more number of employees want to join you. A company which reputation is bad, B company reputation is very good, where would you join? I mean, your preference would be to join in B companies. Reputation matters. Reputation is also said to add to about 2 to 3% of, you know,
fee for goodwill.
Fee for goodwill kind of a thing. So there are things which reputation adds. People don't look at that. People look at film stars. People look at negatives, where a PR professional is coming, a whining and dining professional, event organizer. I think those days are gone.
Whining and dining professional.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Amit, can PR be holistically measured?
Yes and no. You can't measure PR as a concept, but you can measure PR activities or activities done to help public relations happen for a brand, for an organization, for a company. You can measure those. But if you look at PR as a larger umbrella concept, you can't measure PR. It's like saying, can you measure a case that you fought as a lawyer? You can't measure a case. A judge will give you a kind of a verdict, and it's either good or bad, and that's about it. But you can't measure PR as a concept, and that's something people have got wrong over the years.
And yet, the two of you use a term called ROO, return on objective.
Yes.
Like ROI. So something can be measured.
Absolutely.
So what can be measured?
Activities that come under the PR world can be measured. So for example, I'm not saying this because Sujit is here and we are Godrej, but they do a cool event which I've been part of before COVID called La Fair, Vikroli. But that event was created completely by the PR team at Godrej led by Sujit. And I see that event specifically can be measured, and they can see the success of the event by saying, okay, it's happening in Vikroli, they're bringing the world from Mumbai to Vikroli for an evening of fun and games and whatnot. And then they immediately see an uptake of people wanting to know more about apartments they can buy at the Godrej Streets and things like that. So that's one example I'm giving you. Similarly, there are multiple activities that PR undertakes that you can measure, but PR as a whole technically can't be measured. It's a wrong idea.
I would just add to Amith and, try to just demystify this whole measurement thing. I think, yes, everything needs to be measured with a context. So when it comes to public relations and the activities and the strategies and the impact it creates, what we do is we generally look at 3 levels. The number 1 level is about the outputs. How was the press conference? Mostly the efficiency parameters, not the efficacy as yet, but efficiency parameters like how did the press conference go? Did the message go out properly? Did number of journalists come in? What was the quality of experience that you gave? Outputs. The second level is the outcomes, which is basically, did it change the perception of the people who are about to buy your product? Did it reach the right publics? Was there a good opportunity to see? So there's the outcomes. And then third comes the business outcomes. Because of all these things that you did, was there a increase in number of footfalls in your store, say for example? Was there a rise in the brand equity of your employer brand? Another indicator. Was there a rise in the share price probably? Was there a rise in disposition of people considering you over competition? PR can enable this. So at different levels you can measure. So the qualitative and the quantitative measures which I spoke as the first part are easily measurable. There are n number of consultancies and agencies in the social media where you can actually get the numbers, the quantification of that. That gives you a view that the process is right. You are moving in the direction. Those are the parameters you tweak and change if you are getting offlaid from your final objective. So the concept which you just spoke about, return on objectives, is very important in this parallax. So when we do a measurement, we begin with setting the objectives. Okay, now this product has to be launched or this corporate brand has to be launched. What are the public relations objectives? If you list them out, then it becomes easy to measure. So your public relation outcomes are generally employer branding, an increase in disposition, higher investment worthiness, a great employer brand. These are the final CEO KRAs, and these are the objectives that we are trying to achieve. How do we achieve them? You achieve them through your proper planning of PR, strategy, your rolling out, your outputs, your outcomes, and the business outcomes. So people generally confuse, how do you measure these things? Measure these things, which are the outputs, the overall larger objective of an organization. And those things can be measured easily. You have brand tracks, you have brand equity studies, you have everything. So in short, PR is measurable. If you put the context right and look at it from that angle of the impact that you're trying to create, it's measurable.
We'll talk about how not to measure it in a minute.
Sure.
But before that, Amith, any value in having industry-wide standards for PR and reputation management companies? Sujit just spoke about various ways to measure. Should there be a uniform currency, you think?
There should be, but there cannot be, I think, because this has been spoken for about 20, 30 years now.
Yes,
it's never
we've been
happened.
following that.
And the reason for that is each company's activity is different from the other. So you can't measure the same activity in the same way you do with many other things. Like in the world of advertising, you can measure TV viewership. You can measure listenership or readership. That's straightforward. But here you can't, because PR is just not about media. There's so much more and beyond media and PR as well. And for example, we keep saying that PR is equal to reputation. Reputation is equal to behavior. You can't really measure behavior, and 90% of PR is behavior, how a brand behaves, how
What
brands...
about things like net promoter score? That's behavior that can be measured.
Those can be measured, but typically the way a company carries itself, the way the company's leader carries himself or herself, you can't measure. Like Anand Mahindra, for example, and he's an example we've spoken many times in the past. The way he runs his own Twitter handle and social media, you can't really measure it, but he does so much of good for his company in so many ways that you feel, okay, if I have to choose a four-wheeler, I'll consider Mahindra as a vehicle just because the man who runs that company was a chairman.
Seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
let's talk about another form of measurement, one that you're not a fan of, ad value equivalent.
Oh, I hate it.
You've been a severe critic of advertising value equivalent. Why?
It's such a bad measure. I mean, it's not even a measure. It's a farce. Advertising value equivalent is something which is, you get some coverage in the media and then you calculate the column centimeter and space and multiply it with the
Ad rates.
and say this is the value you added.
Yeah.
For a company like Godrej or a Mahindra or a Tata, I think the ad value equivalent in a year would be over 1,000 crores, because that's the amount of column centimeters they deserve and they earn in the media. If our bosses say, give me 1% of that in cash, where would you hide your face? It's a farce. AVs should be killed, should be banned. I think that's something which PR people should. They're fooling themselves if people are reporting ad value equivalence and saying this is the
effectiveness. Yet it's such a sticky term or a sticky.
Because that's the easiest way of self gratification.
Delivering so-called
value. It's not value.
Sujit, in one of the terms that you introduce in this book is called the web of responsible communication. What does this mean? Is this CSR branding, ESG branding, corporate purpose? I think what does this mean?
It's a fantastic question. I think what Amith and I were discussing while writing this chapter, we want to write something about ESG and the contemporary, important, necessary things that organizations need to follow, and which investors are looking at. The millennials and the Gen Z and the new generation future employees are looking at. We said, how do you communicate these things? There have been definitions of CSR and sustainability and good and green and all sorts of things.
Everybody also disagrees on those definitions.
Everybody disagrees. Everybody has their own definition. So the challenge for us was to demystify that. Saying that everybody does that. There's a CSR rule of 2%. There is sustainability. There's ESG. Everyone speaks about it in different parlances and contexts. We said, if you want to then streamline that whole communication from a public relations professional aspect, we need to define them and put them into proper buckets. And that was the effort. So basically, it's about responsibility of an organization which is communicated in a responsible and ethical manner. There's a lot of cases of greenwashing that you see. People don't know much about greening and sustainability, but their products talk big about
attend any advertising award and all the winning entries
absolutely cause
and
purpose.
There's a lot of greenwashing there.
Absolutely, there's a lot of greenwashing. So we said, what are the ethics involved in communicating responsibly about the responsibility of an organization with the backdrop of ESG and CSR and good and green and good stuff and all those. So that's the concept that we try to create. I think it's picking up. There are a lot of conversations happening around that now. That really.
So another term or a designation that you introduce in your book is a CCO, Chief Communications Officer, who is responsible for all internal and external communications. A CMO is going to say, I'm sorry, advertising is not your domain. Advertising is my domain. This is external communications, but this is brand, so it's not for me. So will a CCO actually create more chaos for a CEO?
Not really. This is the term that we didn't coin. This is a term that's been used
It
now.
exists already.
Yeah, very much in the West. In the US, it's a common term. So a corporate communications head is now called the chief communications officer. And that's been created to kind of ensure that that person has what was traditionally called a seat at the table, and he or she is part of the board or the management, the leadership as well. So I don't see that happening when they talk of external and we talk of external and internal communications. We're talking of the earned piece, largely the earned piece, not the paid piece so much. And again, you would have read a term in the book called POEMS, which
You have lots of exciting acronyms
and
in your
Sujit
book.
actually uses them day in and day out in the real work he does. So paid, owned, earned in some form. So I think the onus of being the custodian for the earned piece is with the CCO, the Chief Communications Officer, and the paid piece is with the CMO for sure and his or her team.
Today's world, the interdependencies between a CCO and CMO are enormous. End of the day, it's about the reputation. We're seeing the traditional lines that differentiated paid and earned and owned media are blurred now. That's why the concept of another acronym, which is called the POEMS, POEMS, which is paid, owned, earned media strategies, period. I've seen in my last 15 years and more so last 10 years at Godrej that most of the large campaigns which have been really successful, have won a lot of awards nationally, internationally, have been those where there's been a smooth operation between the marketing, the PR, branding, advertising, and all of them have come together to create magic. So those lines have blurred. I think what is more important to understand is reputation is not about people who are running it. It's about what the world sees. And for the world to see the magic between the people who are internally running it, be it marketing, advertising, branding, has to be so seamless. The interdependencies have to be visible. And then the magic happens. So that's absolutely a necessity to
Okay, now we'll stay with the theme of acronyms.
Yeah.
Another abbreviation used in the book is CARDS, which is Communication, Action to Research, Design and Strategy. How important is it from your book, for these acronyms to your book and these memorable phrases, if I were to?
Memorable phrases just simplify a big concept.
Okay.
Now, the concept of CARDS was basically to drive in a point that whenever you frame narratives, you need to have data to back them. Whenever you drive narratives, there has to be research behind it. Because the world of today's world is, that old time of spray and pray has gone off. Today is a time when when you set a narrative, you need to back it up with data, otherwise people call you out. So all the more important is that you play your cards well. And
that's
hence
the importance of research and...
Absolutely. The importance of research, importance of authenticity in communication, importance of data, importance of listening, importance of packaging it in terms of the contemporary ways in infographics or videos or whatever consumable communication packages, and packaging it together is that card. And if you play that well, magic happens.
So, Amit, CEOs are listening to this interview are saying, I barely have any budget for the PR team itself, and now you're asking me to divide that budget into a research budget as well. Do people think that research on objectives, research on outcomes is money well spent, or it's money that can be sort of avoided to be?
It depends, who is spending and how they're spending it. I think it is going to be money well spent in the long term. In the short term, we think, oh, I'm spending money on research. And we're not
measuring what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm barely doing anything to start with.
But I think all companies worth their names are spending on research without a doubt. The most common is to just measure the media output that happens. That's one aspect, and there's much more in PR beyond that. But media output is the most commonly used research aspect of PR, and people spend on that. And it is expensive, but not super expensive as well. I think most companies can afford it.
But it brings in a perspective, Amit. It's very important to measure what you do and then provide it on a platter saying these have been the outcomes and business outcomes. Unless you have that, management is not good. So I would put it this way. You do your work, you measure it, show the direct connection on business impact. Tell me which organization is not going to invest in that.
And you yourself said 30% of market cap value is based on,
today's CEOs know
reputation.
It. Yeah.
Is it only for B2C companies or
it's
for
for
B2B
everyone.
companies
I
as
think
well?
it's that powerful intangible asset that an organization used to have during MBA days. When I used to read balance sheet, it used to be a term called goodwill on the balance sheet. Goodwill is brand equity. What is goodwill? Is it advertising? Is it what? It's reputation. It's how you're perceived.
Okay, Sujit, final question for you. One industry buzzword that you're sick and tired of, and one word that you think we're going to hear a lot of in 2024.
Well, I'll say there are two words which, in the parlance of PR and public relations, one is monetizing. you can monetize everything.
I
there's certain
detest
things
that
which
word too, so good.
Yeah, and the second one probably is ROI. Public relations is not something which is going to give you an ROI. It can give you an ROO, return on objectives.
Mhm.
It's not a finance function or you're investing money. You're investing intellect, you're investing behaviors, improving behaviors. And the objective is something different. So unless you define your objectives, ROI is fine. It's easy to say and all, but return on objectives is what I would recommend all my PR fraternity starts using. So these are the two words. What I would love to hear more of, and I'm hearing more of, and it just came out when Amith and I were discussing while writing the book, the concept called lo-fi content. Lo-fi content is the opposite of hi-fi content. Hi-fi content is when you put filters and you do
the bragging and
all those
of that,
kind of,
right?
just
Lo-fi
shoot and scoot. Take a video, put it, and why it works? It's because it's authentic. It's captured at source. There is no, you have blemishes in your skin, but you're not smoothing it by a filter.
Part of life.
It's reality. It's part of light. It connects more. So that lo-fi content is something which I'm betting on.
All right, before we close this interview, Amith, this book in part was inspired by a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, the late Ananth Rangaswamy. Tell us a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, so the story goes back to January 2021. Ananth and I would make sure, and I think he did that with many people, call each other the first day or the first week of the new year. And that year, 2021 Jan, he said, there's so much being talked of on PR thanks to COVID. The last 7 months have been all empathy. Why is no one writing a book on PR? So I said, I don't know. He said, what do you mean don't know? You should be writing a book on PR.
Why are you writing a book on PR?
So I said, I don't think I have the time or I have the bandwidth to do it. I said, that's all, typical Anand style. He said, that's all bullshit. If you make the time, you can make it happen. And a day or two later, Sujit called me and said, hey, I get asked by people about a book on PR. There's no book on PR. And I felt it was very weird that two people were talking about a book on PR in the same breath in the same week. Then I told Sujit, Anand mentioned the same thing to me. And a couple of days later, I went back to Anand and said, yes, I have a partner and a co-author. So we actually put a framework, which we thought was great in the second week of January. But Anand being Anand, he trashed it. He said, this book, not even your family will buy it. It was a bad idea. We had 26 chapters starting from A to Z with names we had force-fitted into those chapters. He said, go back, work again, take a month, don't rush into it and come back to me with a better skeleton of the book and then I'll tell you. And so we took a month and a half. We came back to him end Feb, early March. And he liked the idea. He said, now start writing the book. So thanks to Anand for nudging us, pushing us. I'm sure he's watching us and blessing us from wherever he is. And this book is
dedicated to Ananth Rangaswamy.
Okay. On that note, Amith and Sujit, thank you for talking to me.
Thank you, Suresh. Thanks so much.
And that's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, it's @Suvenk on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.